Um, yeah, so the first point on the agenda, can we get an update on Fusaka DevNet 2 and what bugs have been found or what's the current status? Maybe Barnabas gives us an overview first.
Yeah, sure. So the current overview is during the weekend we had a non-finality due to a Taku and Nethermind bug. Both Taku and Nethermind bug have been since fixed, and the network is now finalizing again. This morning we have had to nuke a lot of databases. There was lots of database corruptions on NimbuCL, on Nethermind, on Bezu, and currently the main client that is having issues is Ref. So Ref 1, Ref 2, Nimbus Ref 1, Nimbus Ref 2, they are failing to find peers. So there might be some peering related problems. And Grandin Bezu 1 had a corrupted database as well. And that just got restarted, so it should come online soon.
Could you maybe tell us why we had non-finality first and why was that such a problem for the ELs more than the CLs?
So the non-finality was caused by Netherman and Teku both being offline. They just had over 40% of the network. So maybe Netherman can explain what the bug was, and then maybe Teku can also.
Yeah, the bug was just about fork IDs that were improperly calculated, and we were not connected on execution layer to any other peers, and yeah, probably it it could form a separate cluster of pairs with separate fork because of that. Not sure.
On the Teku side, we published I guess a cleanup commit on the Fusaka DevNet 2 branch, and I think it was a cleanup commit mostly, but I guess there has been some regression in that, and when we pushed the commit there, we were not thinking about that everything now is automated and the commit was about to be published anyway on Fusaka. It's good that we have the actual immediate test that something was wrong there. But I don't have any more detail on that. We will take a closer look to what has been changed there to find out what was the problem. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and maybe one follow-up for the fork ID bug. Is there some reason we didn't really catch that in local testing? Because that also sounds like it should be quite easy to reproduce.
So it worked before because Genesis, most likely Genesis timestamp was the same as timestamps for the initial forks. Maybe it was zeros or so. Not sure. It's an old part of the code, and um, that was not changed a lot, and probably new configuration in the DevNet revealed it. Yeah.
Okay, glad we caught that then. And Barnabas, did you already look into why that led to peering issues or database corruption issues, or does someone from Red or Bezu have some update on that?
So,
From
yep, go for it, guys.
Sorry, from Bezo, I think the error was not related to any of the blocker changes. It may be an existing sync issue. in Bezo. With the DB being restarted, the node is synced well and progressing well now.
Okay, so on Bezo it was likely unrelated and there might still be some bug out there.
Yeah, very likely. I
maybe-
will look into it, but I don't think it's
Okay.
maybe related to the Fusaka changes.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Thank you. Maybe Roman from Reds, have you guys looked into the peering issue yet?
We're trying to look into it, but the problem is that we have trouble reproducing it locally. So the best approach for us right now is inspecting the logs and trying to understand what happened on the tackle boxes, on the red tackle boxes.
It's also on Nimbus. Is there something I can do, like enable debug mode, or maybe you can run locally a ref binary on the node so you can actually reproduce it locally on the DevNet machine?
Yeah, thanks for the offer. Let's continue the discussion in Telegram chat.
Sure.
I'm talking to Matt right now as well, so
Okay.
we'll look into it.
Okay. Were there any other unexplained bugs on Fusaka DevNet 2? What's still left to be done on it?
So the really first bug was the prism bug that should have been caught by a spec test. I actually forgot to mention that, and this caused Prism to basically fork away right away, and we were able to reproduce that fairly easily with the Genesis sync. There's now a new spec test for it, and that has been merged.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that also is a whole class of tests, right? I don't know, Justin, do you want to maybe talk about it? Do we want to backport the validator changes to every fork?
We could. I'll need to look into that more.
Okay, because it seems like at least a test that's worth having, irrespective of which fork we're on.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much other information on this bug. Maybe POTUS or someone else would.
I don't know who from Prism's here today, but yeah, we can probably get some information from them later. Irrespective if you're a CL team, then please have a look at the test, and it should be, I guess, part of the next release. So you will be using the test soon anyway.
And I can quickly say that all other clients do pass the test, which were verified by the nightly spec tests.
Awesome, that's perfect. Anything else on Fusaka DevNet 2, Barnabas?
Maybe we can bring up the spamming issue that we had. So currently we have no spamming going on. So maybe that's why we were able to recover the non-finality, because there was not enough load on the network. We didn't have any transactions. We didn't have any blob transactions. We currently have a spammer bug that we're taking a look at right now. So hopefully we can actually reproduce a real non-finality, and hopefully we can also recover from that.
Okay. Is that also what you wanted to talk about, Jakob? Or did you want to bring up a different topic?
Yeah, it was something related to that. Maybe I can just bring that up, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So what I really want to do is also some performance tests on this DevNet, because we've reintroduced, or not reintroduced, we've introduced this 7907 ERP, which, well, it's 10 times the maximum contract size. And what I really want to test there is actually calling as many contracts there as possible, because yeah, I will not go into the details, but I think it's still possible to call about 11,000 contracts with this size within a 30 million gas transaction. And I have been setting up these tests, but for that we actually need 11,000, or let's say 12,000 of these large contracts. And this is actually being done by the spammer. But yeah, as you mentioned, there likely is a bug in the spammer because it is not doing deploying anything at all at this moment. And we are currently at 3,500 contracts, so we are not close to the actual state which we need for this this performance test. I just wanted to bring up that we need these performance tests because I really want to see that if we do these kind of, let's say attack vectors, that we do not suddenly run into like blocks which take like 3 or 4 seconds on clients to run. And I'm working on these attack vectors, and just wanted to bring that up.
Perfect. Thank you. Do you have an intuition for how long it might take to deploy all of the contracts and get through the tests? Would you have some talking point by ACDE on Thursday?
I have started this spammer at the point where we forked, and I think that was Saturday. Currently, the spammer is not deploying anything, but I think we can say that we need 1 block per contract, and we of course have it will actually take 2 blocks because of the pricing that if you deploy the 30 million gas contract in a 45 million gas block, then the gas price will rise. So let's say we need, what is it, 6,000, about 8,000 blocks for this to deploy. I think it is possible to deploy this by ACDE, but I'm not really sure because then this has to be fixed. The spammer bug has to be fixed. Yeah.
Awesome. And I see in chat that PK already mentioned that he's working on fixing spammer. So I guess you two will be in touch.
Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you, PK. Yeah.
Great. I also see Bharat on the call. Do you maybe want to give us an update on how the MEV testing and MEV workflow is going?
Yeah, for sure. I've updated like MEV Boost and MEV Boost Relay, the Flashbots one to support Hulu. And I've done a bunch of local testing there. And everything generally seems to be fine. There are issues with the issues which I found with respect to the relay. There are some issues like I'm not on locally, at least we're not noticing like blob transactions getting into the relay payload. I believe that's an issue with the Ret R builder. We're seeing a bunch of error logs. I've reached out to the R builder folks on a TG chat about that. With respect to MEV Boost, so generally with the MEV relay pipeline, as I told, right, transactions without blobs are getting in through the MEV relay for the Fulu fork. So MEV Boost and MEV Boost relay generally seem positive as per my local testing. But I think like Barnabas, like probably we'll get it on like DevNet too and generally see how it works there. So yeah, that's the thing.
Awesome.
The
So
only
the
issue, like,
timeline.
sorry,
the timeline there would then be making sure that the relay is including blobs, so figuring out that bug, and once that's done, we would be deploying the relay on DevNet 2.
Yeah, for sure. Like I believe the blobs thing might be an issue with our builder. So we've just reached out to them and I think the R builder is not building blocks with blobs for whatever reason. I'll talk to them and we'll see where the issue is. And yeah, once that's fixed and blobs are going through MEV relay, I think we should be good there.
Okay. Thank you for the update. That's also looking good. Yeah, just to touch upon a previous point, Casey from the Prism team mentioned that they had stale validator indices in their proposal look-ahead code, and previous spec tests as well as Codosis did not change the active validator set. So that is the spec test that has been added. Thanks for that update. Anything else related to Fusaka DevNet 2? I'm currently fighting with the sync test repository. I tried some local sync tests. It seems like Lighthouse is taking a long time to sync. I still have to validate that. The CI version of the sync test is currently broken, and I'll try getting it working in the next day. But if that's done, we should have sync tests on Fusaka DevNet 2.
Are these
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, are these sync tests with Asserter, or is it like something new, some new tool?
It's kurtosis in Asserter. So it's just a script that starts kurtosis and then uses Asserter to make sure that the nodes are synced. And then we throw it in a GitHub CI, so we can just run it as often as we want. And there's a UI to track sync time over time, so we can see how it gets worse as the state gets bigger and so on. Barnabas is asking about backfill. Is there any update that CL teams want to share about that?
We have been working on adding backfill after updating the CGC. We haven't merged it yet, but I think we should be able to get it working soon. We have started testing it, I think.
Prism has a branch we're working on it. I haven't touched it since the CDC changes, but that shouldn't be too far off.
So, anything else on Fusaka DevNet 2? Great. Do we then want to start talking about Fusaka DevNet 3 and what's the plan there? Do you have thoughts on that, Barnabas?
It's well, the prerequisite for that is basically deciding the 7907 changes. Do we have the values for that already set in stone? All the repricing EIPs?
For the repricing EIP, we do have values. I think we're just confirming that the values are good for scaling beyond 60 million as well. But for 7907, I would assume that depends on Joachim's test, as well as I see Marius is on the chat. He had some thoughts on indexes. Do you maybe want to bring it up, Marius?
Sorry, I had to modify my Zoom stuff. Yeah, so the problem with indexes is like without the index, I don't think the result is workable, because we kind of need to look up too much data in order to answer the question whether we have enough gas to look up this much data. And you can construct these weird fringe cases where you have like subcalls that look up data and then run out of gas, and then you have the outer call into the subcall again, and so on. So I think the index is needed by all clients. The question is whether the index should be in protocol or out of protocol. And the problem with having it out of protocol is that in a stateless world, this would mean that the witnesses could be bloated with this data, because you can just do Xcode size on a bunch of contracts, and then the witness had to contain all of these contracts. I guess right now we don't have stateless and we don't have witnesses. So I don't know if we need to over-index on this future of witnesses, but I think that is something that we need to be very mindful of when we move to stateless, is that we need to make this index be in protocol at some point. So the question is, should we do it now, or should we do it later on?
Yeah, Ben, do you want to go?
Yeah, and related to that is, should we charge extra for it? Because it's essentially would be adding the equivalent of an S load to essentially you're doing another database lookup to get length.
Okay, Ansgar, do you wanna go?
Yeah, I mean, on that point, basically, like I have a similar, similar general concern as Marius. That basically, I feel kind of uncomfortable with the index not being in protocol. I think doing it in protocol for Fusaka at the same time seems to me like not really an option. Maybe people disagree, but yeah. And then as Ben was saying, actually, like also the fact that now if we have the index, that it's not really priced is also a problem. But if you price it, then actually you kind of have to. That means that you have to also reprice contract loads for existing small contracts, right? Because they also first go to the index. And the whole point of this index was that we wanted to avoid having to reprice contract loads for existing use cases because they might break. So it really feels like no matter which way we approach it, it just seems to create complications.
I mean, the pricing is kind of weird because we don't really charge for the lookup for code right now. It's kind of bundled into this account read thing. But if you think about it, like we pay the same to read the balance as we do to load the code for the account. And loading the code hash is like, 2 lookups in the database where the balance is just 1. So I think to me, it is slightly different. Like you're not Merkleizing the code size index. So I'm not convinced that we really need to price it like this.
I just want to bring up that Guillaume will likely present something at ACDE, which solves this problem. I will not go into detail, but this will not reprice the existing contracts, and it will put the code size into the account LLP. So, yeah.
That's good to know. Milan, do you wanna go?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to make a small comment that I was looking into this in Aragon, and I think I also discussed it with other people in Aragon, and we think that we actually can load the code size without loading the code in memory, and we actually don't need any extra index for this operation. So we don't need to store any extra data. So kind of like my preference would be to sort of leave this out of protocol unless there's very good reasons, like in terms of future direction for why we would want to add it in protocol. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. But if you guys kind of foresee that there's any strong reasons to add it in the try, then I guess we'll have to. But yeah, we don't really need this index, for example.
Is there then any concrete thing we should be working on between now and ACDE besides the test that Joachim is running? And I guess we make a decision at ACDE about how 7907 goes ahead.
Yeah, I will make sure that, or I will try to get these benchmarks and these performance tests done by ACDE. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you guys think needs to happen before ACDE, Ansgar or Marius, regarding the CIP?
Well, maybe the only question, because I was briefly away when Joachim talked about the tests that we want to run anyway. Does that include the tests where we basically do this clever kind of running out of gas at the right moment in time to basically stress test the worst case test, or is it only the regular test where you actually fully load and are able to pay for the full load?
No, this is exactly the test which you say. What you do is you do a call or a subcall to a contract where you want to call a target contract. For this target contract, you will have exactly enough code to call into a 24 kilobyte or less contract, but you will not have enough gas to actually pay for this this code size cost. So what you can then do, you will force clients to actually look up this code, and it can either be via the site index, or for clients which do not have the site index, they are forced to load the entire code to actually look up the quota size so they can determine the price. And yeah, of course, these will run out of gas, but that also means that we can still read the same amount of contracts which are like now bigger than the 24 kilobytes. And that's indeed the performance test. So likely that's what I would expect. But yeah, my attack is either not working or every client has already done this successfully. But that would mean that every client which does not have this site index has to load something like 3 gigabytes of data. So yeah, I think yeah, this performance test, that's the goal of this test. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's exactly the test that I think we just need to run. So that sounds good then.
There was also a comment in the EIP that Mario linked. Do you maybe want to just bring it up, Mario?
Yeah, of course. It's a very simple open question is whether we charge for the extra size during the transaction like entry contract. So just imagine that we call the transaction calls directly into large contract. We currently do not charge anything extra. So that's basically just the question of whether we should charge for it or not. And I think we should do. I just place this comment into the EIPs for us to decide at some point that we have to either charge for it or not. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has thought about this or not, but I think we should definitely decide on something.
Just to comment on that, if we do this, then we have to analyze well, mainnet contracts which could actively break, because this means that if you currently call into existing contracts, that means that you now need more gas than, or you need more upfront gas than you have now, and that could of course mean that something breaks. So that is something we should definitely analyze first. Yeah.
Sorry, can you explain it? How does it break? Because we'll be only charging for the extra, and we don't have such contracts today. Such a big contracts today.
Okay, I guess I'm not understanding the solution. Sorry. Yeah, I will reread this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, basically just charge if the entry point of the transaction is a large contract. Since there are no large contracts right now in mainnet, I don't think there should be anything breaking. But I think this should not affect the intrinsic gas cost of the transaction. It should only affect once you enter the execution. If you don't have enough gas to pay for the large contract, just out of gas immediately. That's my suggestion, at least. But I don't think it should break any existing behavior, in my opinion.
Right. Okay. I see. But I'm not really seeing how this solves the problem, because you still have to load the code in order to figure out if this is a large contract. So yeah, but maybe we should discuss this async. I'm not sure, but yeah.
It's basically, I think it's the same problem with or without the index. If you have the index, the code size in the state tree is basically the same issue for an inter contract call. Yeah, I don't think there's any extra problems to this, but I'm sure. Yeah, we should definitely analyze it. Yeah.
Okay, so our deadline for Thursday is going to be getting all the open questions for 7907 taken care of, and to make sure that we're happy with the cost set for ModX, right? And if that's done, we should be ready to discuss Fusaka DevNet 3 on Thursday. Okay, there was one other question from the Aragon team. I think Andrew had asked this. Are blocks supposed to be RLP serialized as header transactions, almost withdrawals? The questions on the interop chat, I'm not sure. Does someone already have an answer for them, or do we want to engage on the interop chat about this? let's take it to the interrupt chat then. Andrew asked a question about 3-4 hours ago. Great. Then there is the one sec, let me get the link up again. So there's a open topic that Marco pointed out about engine get blobs v2 from last week and to not prohibit partial responses. Are you on the call, Marco?
Yeah,
Talk about those.
I
Yeah.
can.
Do you want to
I can-
introduce it?
Yeah, sure. So a bit of context here is that for the PeerDAS stuff, we use the getBlobs v2 API to ask the EL side if there's any work that we can reuse. And in the case that we have a full column, we can just reuse all the work from the EL side and we're golden. The problem is that in 40% of cases, if there's a private blob in that block, that means we're missing one of the cells in the column. And with the current text, that means that the EL side returns null and there's no work that we can reuse. We're pretty sure on the networking side that we can make some like relatively low level changes to gossip sub with little changes required on the clients to allow us to reuse all the partial responses, all these like everything except the missing cell. And then for some context on data, like around 40% of blocks with blobs have one private blob. And so it's like in these cases, we're really just missing that one cell. And currently, we'd have to fall back to transmitting the whole column. If we don't prohibit partial responses, we can reuse all that work and then just propagate that one missing cell. And so the change here is just to make the text not prohibit partial responses. It kind of goes back to what it does go back to what the older text was saying. And then my understanding of the pushback here is that we do not have this optimization currently. This is true. And we are paying extra for serializing this data that is currently not useful, which is also true. Yeah. And so I just kind of want to talk synchronously through this and try to end up with some general agreement.
Yeah, maybe to clarify one point that was also in the comment section. So partial responses are still useful in Fusaka because my assumption was also that they weren't useful, and that's why we removed them.
So currently, right now, they're not useful, but we think that we could, like, pretty sure that we can make them useful without a hard fork.
Got it. So we want to lay the groundwork for a future change that might make it more useful.
Exactly. There's like a gossip sub change we can make without a hard fork that would make partial responses useful. And so if we don't prohibit the partial responses, it's likely that we could ship this gossip sub change without a hard fork and get these benefits as we scale the blob parameter, like with the BPO only changes.
Got it. At least in the comment, I see that Pawan had some hesitation towards merging the change. Do you maybe want to voice the hesitation or?
Yeah, but I think like the main point was that we initially did not have partial responses, and then initially did have partial responses, and then we didn't have. So I was just a little hesitant to merge this change without actually having the optimization, because like if EL starts returning partial responses, then it is a serialization and deserialization load on both ends as the number of blobs increases. And I also felt that we could potentially just add like another version of get blobs later on if this optimization works out, and it would like that also wouldn't sort of require a hard fork per se, but it is a little more coordination effort. But yeah, I just like the main objection was to validate the optimization before actually uh, changing uh, the behavior.
I guess the main question's gonna be if we want to include this change synchronously for Fusaka DevNet 3 and then just ship the change proactively. But I guess mirroring Pawan's point, do we already know enough that we know that this change is going to be useful such that we can proactively add it, or do we want to do this later with post Fusaka, for example?
Yeah, I'm, if we think that we could like make this kind of change after we launch Fusaka, like that's also fine by me. I think I just don't want to be in a position where we have like this pretty obvious optimization that we can't use until Glamsterdam.
Yeah, I think if we do it post Fusaka, we'd likely just use engine get blobs v3, and then that would be a engine capabilities check. And if v3 exists, then the CL would use v3, and if not, it would fall back to v2. So I don't think there's a blocker with this needing to be in Fusaka, but yeah, I think if all CLs agree that they want to put this in, then it's great. But right now, it at least seems like Prism and Lighthouse mostly want to learn more about the optimization before agreeing.
Yeah. I don't have a strong preference here. And I'll just add a couple more things, which is I think we can make the EL side technically doesn't have to change. Like if it keeps its current behavior, it would still be spec compliant. The CL side would have to change, and it might be able to do some optimizations where it doesn't have to pay so much for deserialization if it notices any of the values are null. So it can just like skip the blob deserialization if any of the values are null. But again, like, yeah, I get that this is some extra work. But yeah, like no, my strong preference here is we can do something for this before Glamsterdam. The specifics I leave up to you all.
Okay, do we have any other CL teams who want to speak either in favor or against the change? I think in general, it seems like the main downside is that we're spending a few more cycles doing serialization and deserialization for a potential future optimization. I guess that's the crux, right?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Casey also mentioned that he's in support of Marco's proposal, but most of Prism hasn't reviewed it yet. Perhaps we can create a thread on ACD and put a deadline for tomorrow to agree. If client teams agree, then we can schedule this change for Fusaka DevNet 3, if that works.
Yeah, I guess another comment is that if we are already doing a lot of testing now, does it make sense to like introduce a V3 version mid Fusaka? Will that also necessitate like require a similar level of testing that we want to do? And would we be hesitant on rolling out that V3 version? I guess is there prior art there?
Yeah, I think I'd also agree with you. I think if we're doing this change after Fusaka, it might not actually get the same level of testing as we do with Fusaka. If we do it after Fusaka, it'll likely be like engineered blobs v1, where a client team rolls it out, and then presents the results and other client teams decide to implement it or not. But I'd say the play here would be to create a thread on all core devs and then collect feedback async over the next day and then have a deadline for merging this in tomorrow. It seems like tending to yes makes sense over here. So unless there's strong objection by tomorrow, we should put this change in Fusaka DevNet 3. Does that sound okay to everyone?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Thank you. Sunnyside Lab team, do you guys want to give a brief update on what you've been testing on Fusaka and what the next steps are?
Hi, yeah, we've just started running DevNet with DevNet 2 spec. And yeah, as we discussed, we will first do benchmarking of the network bandwidth, and then we will do bandwidth constraining test after. So there will be 2 parts in the test. And yeah, we've started with 50 Prism gas nodes over the weekend, and it seems quite good so far.
Awesome. And I guess you guys will share a write-up on the interop chat and then reach out to client teams.
Yes, we will.
Perfect. And I guess that leads well into the next topic. We should slowly be planning more offensive networks on Fusaka. So split networks, trying to do deeper reorgs. I think one that would be interesting is with a proposal look ahead to have reorgs over 1 or 2 epochs, see what happens there. Do we want to start doing these with Fusaka DevNet 2 specs, or do we want to block on Fusaka DevNet 3 and then do it afterwards? What does the timeline look there? Barnabas mentions DevNet 3, and he has at least a few pluses. Okay, then let's set that as the plan. So we'd focus on getting DevNet 3 specs frozen ASAP, and then focus more on breaking DevNet 3. Cool. Anything else on Fusaka?
I probably it might be relevant to bring the topic about blob per text limitation. There is slight opposition of having it as part of blob schedule. And probably for the next DevNet, we need to agree what we will do with that, because it's right now implemented as via blob schedule, right? So my proposal is still to do this, and or maybe just raise blob limit, consensus blob limit to 9, and simplify the blob schedule if it works for you guys. Why it may be important is that because it seems like TX pool is not scaled. It's so, for example, some clients decline blob transactions propagation if a transaction has more than 7 blobs. It means that local blob building will not include big transactions in the future, and I guess it's done to not overload the pool with heavy transactions. But maybe we need to do some steps towards its scaling. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one maybe clarification Ansgar asked. The Yeah, was the decision to move the per TX blob limit to the PRDAS EIP, or was it to leave it in the BPO?
I mean, that doesn't matter where it lives. The question is whether we want to actually just hard code this value, or do we want to be making it configurable? Because right now what we do is if it's not configured by the client, then we default to max, which is not right. And there was a pushback for doing that. So the next question is, if we shouldn't be defaulting to max, should we be defaulting to 6? And if it just default to 6, then we probably don't want to make it configurable. Or if we make it configurable, then we need to just default to 6 instead of defaulting to max. And we can still keep it in the BPO, EIP.
With Preg, it's 9 on consensus there. I mean, we have it already more than 6. Should we add this limit now and check it?
So this is kind of retroactively saying the max TX per blob we have today, which could be 9, is basically going to be the max we have for the future, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, is there that in itself makes sense to me? I think we're also doing a similar change with transactions per gas. So has there been any opposition towards this change? Is there a discussion somewhere that we can follow this on?
Any discussion in the execution or on Awkward Dev regarding this, but not many people participated. I think we just need to open a new PR and discuss it over there.
Yeah. Also, I think Marius says he thought they wanted a max at 6. Francesco, you had your hand up. Do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, same thing Mario said. I don't remember exactly when this happened. I don't know if it was on an Encore Dev or on another testing call, but I'm pretty sure that there was like a general agreement for 6 at some point as the value. Then I mean, besides that, I don't personally, I don't really care if it's configurable or not. Like if people want it to be configurable and it doesn't cause too much work to change it back to configurable, that's fine. But I really don't think we should be defaulting to the max if it's not, there isn't like a specifically configured value. And yeah, and specifically we had the number 6 as something that a lot of people agreed on.
That was very quick discussion, and I just trying to bring such an argument to that because I felt to bring it before. So if we set it to 6, we will need to validate that new transactions on the fork border when Osaka happens. Before we allowed 9 transactions. If we allow just 6, we will need to validate on fork that transaction pool does not contain big transactions now. And it will be a little bit more complex, and seems to me that 9 is better number as it is the current number, and we will not need to check for a decrease in the future.
Ben, do you want to continue?
I'd just say, yeah, I'm keen to have it low, but if we've already done the work to have it configurable, it's worth keeping that, because when we hit 72, maybe 6 isn't the right number. Maybe we want to get a little bit higher. So it'd be, if we've already done that work, then we might as well keep it in. that makes sense, because as we go ahead, that number might increase as the number of blobs increases.
Right, but then the argument is that we still need to change the EIP to specify that the default value, if it's not defined, should be 6 and not max.
Yeah. But I mean, I just mean if we have it in the BPO, then we might as well just keep it in the BPO and set it at 6.
They want to clarify. Marius mentions 6 is a constraint for text pool, but you can build a block with 9 blobs right now, right? It's not constrained by consensus.
No, we can build a block with 9 blobs, but we only allow 6 block transactions in our transaction pool.
Yep. So this number that we're discussing right now, it's a constraint for like block building too. I mean, you will not be able to include big transactions in the future. Is this difference considered?
I think the idea was to limit the gossip limit on the CL side. And that's why we wanted to limit it to 6. So we have a predictable value there.
Okay.
Yeah. And also if we're including larger transactions that aren't the transaction pool, then we lose the benefit of get blobs.
Just mimicking something that Ansgar put in the chat. We apparently have already made the decision to move max out of the BPO and set it to 6. So if we do want to revisit this, then I think the best approach is to have a thread on either all core devs or execution dev, and to bring it as a change to ACDE on Thursday. But that being said, I think right now it does make sense to leave it at 6. And and Barnabas does mention we don't have the modification to the EIP, so we should have that. Yeah, but other than that, I think that would be the general plan forward for the topic. Does that sound okay? Okay, so we would still need an update to the EIP if that has not been made already. Moving on to the next topic, since we are kind of close to the end, gas limit changes. Quite a few client teams, I think Nethermind, Gets, Res, and Aragon have all released releases with 45 million as the default gas limit. The ETH Panda Ops team has also released a blog post with how we arrived at the 45 million gas limit number. And I think Bezu team is working on a release this week to update their default as well. So I think this is also a good time to start asking CLs to update their gas limit, knowing that the performance-related fixes are now put into the ELs. So yeah, just wanted to flag that for CL teams. I know that Prism already has a branch with the change ready, and yeah, I think other CLs will follow shortly after. And relating to the gas limit topic in general, Felix from the Geth team has been looking more into ModX optimizations on Geth. There's an active chat in the gas limit channel, along with some tests and looking into it. And yeah, the Bezu team says that they're working on testing the new release, sync performance regressions, and so on. So that should be there soon. Besides that, I think PK had a question on the gas limit. Do you want to talk about it, PK?
Yeah, just a general question on 12 DevNet 1. We currently have a gas limit of 1 million, and usual spamming scenarios basically break the chain right now. think that was in preparation to get contracts deployed. Just wanted to ask if you still need it or we can lower it again.
I think Joachim was the one doing the deployments. Do you wanna talk about it, Joachim? Can we lower the gas limit again, or do you still need it to be very high? He might have dropped off, so we might have to talk to him about this later. Okay, is there anything else people want to talk about regarding the gas limit? Okay, any other topics anyone wanted to bring up for the call today? Otherwise, I think we have a plan for at least a couple of the topics for ACDE, and we should be on target for freezing the scope for Fusaka and then planning DevNet 3. Thank you everyone for joining then, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Bye.